Thanks for being here. Glad you came. I wanted to talk a little bit about budget since we have our final budget workshop tomorrow at 11 o'clock in the morning, where the Commission will again review the budget and make have final questions and make some final decisions. So at that point, I wanted to let you know that I'm going to be recommending to them that we take our $2.5 million, which is our difference now between our revenues and expenditures, to the negative, $2.5 million more expenditures than revenues projected. And that my recommendation is that that amount of money be taken out of reserves rather than raising the fire fee or increasing the millage. The millage will be this, my recommendation is that the millage remain the same as last year. And that the fire fee remain the same as it's been for the last several years. You're probably wondering what happened, how did we get down to 2.5? We started at 8.5 million, which was the hole that we had to fill. And we did a bunch of stuff. First of all, we cut an additional $2.5 million out of our budget. So we went to each of the departments and said, you need to give us some cuts, and that amounted to $2.5 million. We also are looking at our revised revenue assumption. We're looking at our revenue and make sure that we're accounting for all of revenue that could come in, and that added another $1.2 million. We're also looked at the fees that are being paid by large entities, and we had a cost allocation study done, and we are going to bring in a $1.5 million in additional fees. That's not fees to the public, like I know people are going to think, are we going to have to pay more for parks and things like that? That's not what we're talking about here. These are large commercial entities. We're also looking at an increased CRA transfer of $1 million. So that pretty much makes up the difference between the 8.5 and the 2.5 million. So we're down to 2.5, and as I said, my recommendation is going to be that we take that out of reserves with a couple of what's the word I want? I've just gone blank. A couple of provisos with that. First of all, that we are going to start a study of ways to look at alternative service delivery models. Can we be delivering services to the public in a more cost-effective way? And we're going to be asking the Commission, we're going to go out for an RFP to have a consultant come in and help us look at a variety of departments. Any money that's saved by doing that is going to go right back into the reserves to make up for that 2.5 that we're borrowing from them. We're also going to, we have a contingency built into the budget of over $1 million. I think it's about $1.5 million, $1.6 million. We're going to make sure that we don't spend that contingency frivolously. So I'm going to try and preserve that through the year. Of course, if an emergency comes up and we have to use it, we're going to use it. But I'm going to really try and preserve that contingency through the year. We're also having some property sales going on. So any of our properties that get sold during the year, the money from those properties is going to go directly into the reserve to make up for that 2.5 million. This is not, we took money from the reserves last year. We're going to take money from the reserves this year. We can't do it again next year. We have got to figure out how to save money and how to increase the property taxes that are coming into our city. It's a two-sided scale, and it's about running as efficiently and effectively as we can, and it's about doing what we can to get more businesses into our city and to increase property values. That's just a sort of a general fact that people probably don't understand. Our operating budget is about $160 million. We get in about $51 million in property taxes to apply towards that $160 million. The $51 million really just about covers our police budget. Doesn't cover fire, doesn't cover Parks and Rec or anything else. So our property taxes really support a very small percentage of our budget, and we really need to change that. Questions?
Maybe taking off on that last point, how do you change that to broaden and diversify where the money comes from? And then the second question, what kinds of alternative models are you looking at to recuperate some of that money?
Okay. In terms of bringing in more property taxes, we need to do everything we can to raise the property values here in our city. So we need to make sure that our city's safe. We need to make sure our city's clean and beautiful. We need to make sure that this is a place where people want to live and that they'll come in, buy houses, and that our property values, our housing values will go up. In addition to that, we need to bring more people here. And when I say more people, I mean more jobs, more businesses. We have to add to that tax base, and the best way to do that is by bringing in more businesses to our city.
And then the second part of that, the models you may consider.
Well, I think we're looking at some very specific departments in our city, and if the private sector might be better able to provide those services than we at the public sector might be better able and less expensively be able to provide those services. So
maybe having some outside companies do some of the work the city is doing right now.
Well, I'll just give you an example. Last year we eliminated our print shop. So all of our printing goes out to Kinko's and whomever else. We saved a whole lot of money doing that because they can do it a lot less expensively than we could do it in-house. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking at.
You mentioned looking at specific departments. Can you name those departments?
Yeah, I can, but I'd rather not at this point because we're going to have the consultant come in and just take a look at where we can get the most bang for our buck.
Do you believe that tax incentives might help bring more business?
I think that's something we have to think about. We can't do tax incentives unless the public votes to let us do it. And right now, I believe Jupiter and Palm Beach Gardens both have approved tax incentives. So I think that that's something we're ultimately going to be looking at, yes. And, I don't think incentives are the answer. I think, hard work and selling our city and being a great place to live and having great amenities is what brings businesses to us. So we have to make sure that we have all of that in place as well.
Some cities have looked at outside companies or outside agencies, i.e. for fire, police, and so forth. Is that on the table or off the table?
Not fire and police. Fire and police are off the table. We're not looking at outside agencies for fire and police, but just about everything else is. We're going to look at it.
Any layoffs this go around with some of the budget?
We've not done any layoffs. We have not. There are some positions that are vacant that we've not filled, but we haven't laid anything.
Service cuts? Reductions?
Not at this point.
Will there be a rise in costs for any city services?
I think we're still looking at that. We have a parking study that we've been undergoing, and I suspect that there'll be some recommendations around parking. That's an enterprise fund, and the money that you get in parking stays in parking, so it doesn't really help our budget costs. But we're going to look at those. Everything. We're going to come to the commission at some point with a whole fee package. I don't expect that there will be huge increases in fees.
Just because I'm new to the area, how does our city compare with surrounding cities budget-wise? Are we okay? Are we doing better than other cities?
Well, we because we're a large urban center, our property values did not go up as much as other cities did. So they went up. Our property values this year went up 2.5%. But I think some of the other outlying cities had larger increases in property values than we did. But other than that, I think we're all sort of struggling with the same issues. One of the big issues is that our police department budget went up by $4.5 million. Now, half of that was due to pension increases, and insurance increases. So we have to look at, absolutely look at pension reform. We began pension reform a couple of years ago when we first negotiated with the police and fire, and we're going to have our contracts coming up again this year. No, well, in the next year, actually. And we're going to have to address some more pension reform.
When you pull the 2.5 from the reserves, what's left in the reserves? And what's the ideal target to keep it at?
We're trying to keep it at 20%, and it will still be around 20%. But it's not, we really need to keep that balance up because, of course, it's something that the rating agencies look at. So we have to be really planful and thoughtful about putting that money back in as we're able to do that.
Is it risky doing that?
Not at this point. I think we're okay. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it if I was feeling like it was risky, but our finance director is comfortable with it, and but we really can't do much more.
So do it once, do it twice, but after this.
This is it. This is it.
We had a question from a viewer that was sent in to us. They mentioned that you recently traveled to Boca and FAU and that they're doing a lot for local entrepreneurs. Do you see anything in the works for similar programs here?
Yeah, absolutely. We are having the first startup weekend here in West Palm Beach on November 15th and 16th. I think that's the weekend. And that week that follows is Entrepreneur Week. And we will be doing a lot of outreach to entrepreneurs, having special seminars for entrepreneurs, and in addition, we're going to be opening up an incubator where we've got plans after we see what happens at Startup Weekend, and if we identify some really good possibilities, we're going to be able to move those people into an incubator so they can build their business. Yeah, definitely.
Is there a sense yet how the rollout of healthcare reform will impact the way the city does business?
I don't really know at this point. We're very, we have our own employee health center, which has certainly helped us cut costs. But I really don't know yet what the impact of the healthcare reform will be.
Seems to be a big unknown for a lot of different places.
Yeah. I think the critical piece is, and this will begin on October 1st, is keep getting people enrolled into these cooperatives, especially healthy young people enrolled into these insurance cooperative, healthcare cooperatives. And I think that will be a really important step.
Will the city proactively push that as part of a campaign to get the word out?
We're going to help. We're going to help.
Okay, so you're proposing to leave the tax rate unchanged at 8.55. Is it 8.55?
It's 8.3, whatever we did last. 8.35, I think.
Yeah. So taking $2.5 million from reserves, no hiking the fire assessment fee.
Correct.
Just for people living in the area and taxpayers in general and city workers, should they be concerned in any way, shape, or form?
Oh, and this is a really run city, well-run city, and we're very fiscally conservative. We try to do the best job we can in the least expensive way, and we're concerned about the taxpayers. We heard people when we talked about increasing the fire fee. People were very concerned about that, as were people who are involved in the business community, people who are involved in attracting businesses. They didn't want us to increase fire fee, they didn't want us to increase the village, because it makes it even more difficult to attract business. So, the property owner who pays property taxes, they're dealing with all of the issues everybody else is. So if we can avoid increasing their burden, we will, but we're not going to take chances, so, we're in good shape.
But is that option a more real option next year?
We're going to have to really be very frugal this year. We're going to have to negotiate some very considerable pension reform pension changes. It may be that when we get to next year, we're going to have to look at some kind of increases. I think it's too early to say. The unfortunate part is that our workers have not had a pay increase in a number of years, 5 years, and they're not going to get one this year. Our police and fire have a step plan, but that only goes to the youngest police officers and a small percentage of the actual police and firefighters. So a lot of people have been working without raises for quite a long time. We did, we had for a couple of years the furlough days. This year we took those away so people did not lose that extra 20% they were losing for the furlough days. So